When love became a lie, we tell ourselves. I want to talk to you about something that's been sitting heavy on my chest for a while now. Something I didn't fully understand until I sat down with Renee Francois. Renee is not one of those people who just talks about change. She is change. She spent decades working with families, communities, and young people whose society has written off. And she refuses to let empty words replace real action. She doesn't do performative love. She doesn't do fake accountability. And when she speaks, you feel it in your bones because she's not interested in making you comfortable. She's interested in making you whole. And what she shared with me during our conversation shook something loose in my own understanding of how we raise children and how we show up in relationships and how we've allowed certain words, powerful words, sacred words, to lose all their weight. Here's what Renee said that I can't stop thinking about. She said, accountability is not automatic, it's learned. And if we don't teach it consistently, clearly, and early, we end up with adults who can't own their mistakes, can't apologize without deflecting, and can't love without conditions they never admit out loud. That hit me because we live in a world where people say, I love you all the time, but love has become the easiest lie we tell ourselves. We say it when we're angry. We say it when we're leaving. We say it to justify control, manipulation, and neglect. And somewhere along the way, we stopped asking whether love was being demonstrated or just declared. Renee Francois reminded me that love without accountability is just performance. And if we want to talk about entering a soft girl era, about rest, about boundaries, about reclaiming peace, we have to start by being honest about what we were taught, what we're teaching, and whether any of it is actually rooted in love or just survival dressed up in nice words. Let me paint you a picture. There was a time not too long ago when educators were exhausted. They were watching the same kids act out over and over again with no real change. They tried punishment, they tried lectures, they tried sending kids home, and none of it worked. Because punishment without teaching is just anger with a timeout. So they shifted. They started using something called positive behavior intervention, a framework that said if you want kids to be accountable, you have to teach them what accountability looks like. You have to set clear expectations. You have to be consistent. You have to praise the behavior you want to see and correct the behavior you don't every single time, not just when you're fed up. And you know what happened? Behavior improved, self control improved, relationships between kids and adults improved. Because accountability was no longer this vague concept kids were supposed to figure out on their own. It became something modeled, reinforced, and expected. But here's the part that gets me. If we know this works in schools, why don't we do it at home? Why do we excuse repeated disrespect from our children because we're tired? Why do we let harmful behavior slide because we don't want to be the bad guy? Why do we say they'll grow out of it when we know deep down that's not how character develops? Renee Francois said something during our conversation that I want you to sit with. She said when children are not consistently taught responsibility, respect, and ownership of their choices, those habits weaken over time. And they don't just weaken, they show up later as defensiveness, blame shifting, and an inability to take accountability in adulthood. That's not a generational curse, that's a teaching gap. And it's one we have the power to close. Think about the schools that made this shift. Classrooms that were once chaotic became spaces where children learned how to regulate themselves. Kids who were constantly in trouble started to understand that their actions had consequences and that those consequences weren't just punitive, they were instructive. Teachers stopped feeling like referees and started feeling like guides. And the children, they didn't just behave better, they felt better. They had clear boundaries. They had adults who showed up consistently. They had a framework that made sense. But the magic wasn't in the system. The magic was in the consistency. The magic was in adults who refused to give up on teaching accountability just because it was hard. The magic was in the decision to say, I will not let you fail yourself, and I will not fail you by pretending this behavior is acceptable. That's love, real love, the kind that doesn't feel soft in the moment but builds something solid over time. Now, let's talk about Black families, because this conversation wouldn't be complete without acknowledging the intentional, protective, and deeply rooted way Black parents have historically raised their children. There's research on something called racial socialization, and it reflects what many of us already know. Black families have long used direct guidance, strong expectations, and lesson based parenting to teach children how to carry themselves with dignity, how to navigate a world that won't always be fair, and how to take responsibility for their actions, even when the system won't take responsibility for its own. This wasn't soft parenting. This was survival parenting. This was, you will respect your elders. You will watch your mouth. You will think before you act because the world is watching you differently and I need you to be prepared. And it worked. Children raised in environments where accountability and identity were reinforced grew up with stronger self understanding, better emotional resilience, and respect for boundaries. They learned that actions have consequences. They learned that respect is not optional. They learned that love is not just a feeling, it's a standard. Black parents didn't just talk about respect, they modeled it. They didn't just tell their children to be accountable, they held them accountable. And they did this knowing that the world outside their home would not give their children the benefit of the doubt. They did this knowing that one mistake, one moment of disrespect, one lapse in judgment could cost their child everything. So they taught with intention. They taught with urgency. They taught with love that looked like discipline, correction, and high expectations. And the children who received that teaching, they didn't just survive, many of them thrived. They became leaders, educators, caregivers, and change makers because someone cared enough to teach them accountability when it mattered most. But here's where the shift happened. Somewhere between survival and success, between making it out and making it comfortable, some of that structure got lost. Some of those lessons got softened. And I'm not talking about being less strict, I'm talking about being less consistent. I'm talking about parents who say one thing and do another. I'm talking about love being used as an excuse to avoid discipline. I'm talking about respect becoming negotiable. Renee Francois said it plainly: generational shifts matter, but every generation has to rebuild standards intentionally. If we want stronger families, stronger communities, and stronger character, we have to model accountability, boundaries, and real respect every single day. And that brings me to the word that's been haunting this entire conversation: love. We throw that word around like it's free, like it doesn't cost anything, like saying it is the same as showing it. But research on relationships tells us something we already know deep down. Trust doesn't come from words, trust comes from reliability, honesty, and consistent action. When someone says, I love you, but lies to you, dismisses you, disrespects you, or refuses to take responsibility when they hurt you, that word becomes empty. It becomes noise. And the problem is we've normalized that noise. We've accepted love as a declaration instead of a demonstration. We've let people get away with saying, I love you, while treating us like we don't matter. And worse, we've modeled that for our children. Because here's the truth: children don't learn what love means from what we say, they learn it from what we do. They learn it from whether we keep our promises. They learn it from whether we apologize when we're wrong. They learn it from whether we show up, stay consistent, and hold ourselves to the same standards we hold them to. If we say we love them, but we don't protect them from harm, they learn love is conditional. If we say we love them, but we excuse bad behavior instead of correcting it, they learn love has no boundaries. If we say we love them, but we don't model respect, responsibility, and accountability, they learn love is just a word people use when they want something from you. That's not the soft girl era. That's survival mode dressed up as affection, and it's exhausting. Think about the relationships you've been in where someone said they loved you, but their actions told a completely different story. Think about the confusion that created. Think about the harm that caused. Think about how long it took you to trust again, if you ever did. Now think about the children watching us repeat that same pattern, watching us say, I love you while we lie, watching us say, I love you while we avoid accountability, watching us say, I love you while we break promises, dismiss feelings, and refuse to apologize. What are we teaching them? We're teaching them that love is performance. We're teaching them that words don't have to match actions. We're teaching them that accountability is optional. And then we wonder why they grow up unable to maintain healthy relationships, unable to trust, unable to love themselves. So, what do we do? How do we shift from empty words to real love? How do we teach accountability when we weren't always taught it ourselves? How do we rebuild respect in a generation that's been told feelings matter more than actions? We start by being honest. We stop excusing repeated bad behavior. We stop letting our children, our partners, and even ourselves off the hook when harm is caused. We teach respect early and consistently. We don't wait until a problem becomes a pattern before we address it. We make love visible through action. We say less, improve more. We keep our word. We set boundaries. We model integrity. And we stop pretending that love is enough when it's not backed by accountability. Renee Francois is doing this work every day. She's teaching families, guiding young people, and refusing to let the word love be used as a shield for dysfunction. She's reminding us that accountability is not harsh, it's holy. It's the thing that makes love real. It's the thing that makes relationships safe. It's the thing that makes softness possible. Because here's what I've learned: you can't rest in a relationship where accountability doesn't exist. You can't be soft with someone who won't own their mistakes. You can't build a life with someone whose love is all words and no follow through. And you can't raise children who respect themselves if you don't teach them what respect looks like. This is the work of the soft girl era. It's not just about bubble baths and boundaries, though those matter. It's about rebuilding the foundation. It's about teaching our children what love actually means. It's about holding ourselves and the people we love to a standard that honors truth, consistency, and care. It's about saying, I will not accept love that doesn't show up. I will not excuse behavior that harms me or my peace. I will not teach my children that words are enough when actions tell a different story. And it's about recognizing that the strongest thing we can do is not carry everything. The strongest thing we can do is teach accountability so the next generation doesn't have to survive the way we did. So here's my challenge to you: Stop waiting for someone else to change. Stop waiting for your partner to suddenly become accountable. Stop waiting for your children to magically understand respect. Stop waiting for love to feel different when you haven't changed what you're accepting. Start today. Start now. Teach accountability in your home, model it in your relationships, demand it from yourself first, and then from the people you allow into your life. Because the soft girl era isn't about lowering standards, it's about raising them so high that rest becomes possible, so high that peace becomes protected, so high that love becomes real. And that starts with accountability. It starts with honesty. It starts with refusing to let words replace action. It starts with you. Right now, today, don't just listen to this and nod. Don't just agree and move on. Go home and have the hard conversation. Correct the behavior you've been excusing. Apologize for the harm you've caused. Keep the promise you've been breaking. Show love through action, not just declaration. Because Renee Francois reminded me, and I'm reminding you, love has to be demonstrated, not just declared. Accountability is learned, not automatic. And every generation has to rebuild standards intentionally. So, what are you teaching? What are you modeling? What are you accepting in the name of love that you know isn't love at all? Answer that question and then do something about it because the world is waiting for you to stop surviving and start living. The world is waiting for you to stop performing love and start proving it. The world is waiting for you to build the kind of family, the kind of community, the kind of life that future generations will thank you for. That's the soft girl era. That's the work. That's the legacy. Now go build it.